If you've seen any of my content before, there is a good chance that you will know me as a digital era photographer, more specifically the Micro Four Thirds format. But there's a side of photography that I'm keen to explore. I want to go back to the roots of photography and try shooting 35mm film. I'm going to be using my Chinon CS. It's a fully manual camera. It's around 45 years old at this point. There's no light meter working on the camera. I'll get into that a little bit later on in the video. But I'm keen to see if everything that I've learned and discovered through digital photography can be translated backwards in time, and see if I can translate it to film. So there we go, so there's my first 5 film photographs in the bag. I'm quite enjoying this. Now, when I said at the start of the video the light meter doesn't work on the camera, well, I have a light meter here that I picked up off eBay for 99p. It's a Leningrad 4 light meter, and the thing is absolutely fantastic. And the best thing about it is all of the shutter speeds on the Leningrad 4 light meter mark up perfectly with the shutter speeds on my Chinon CS. So there's no sort of guesswork involved, other than sometimes it may be just a little bit out, a little bit, you've got to guess either way. But so far, I'm really enjoying this. So let's get out of the wind, I'll sit down and I'll talk to you about my experience so far shooting film. So this is the setup that I'm using tonight. It's a Chinon CS and I'm using my Helios 44 lens. It's a 58mm f2 maximum aperture, and I'm using my, if I can get it out, my Leningrad 4 light meter. Like I said earlier in the video, I picked this up on eBay for 99p and it still works beautifully. Now if I can show you this, if somebody could please explain what this means to me, I would be eternally grateful. So you see at the top there, there's a scale that reads, what, 8 to 13, but if you slide that down, it reads 1 to 7. Now, I'm aware that the light meter is supposed to read at least 8 before you slide and play with things. When you adjust that, it gives you the slower shutter speeds, which I think has cost me a frame already. I had to retake a photograph. See, the light meter was reading 9 on the scale. Like I say, if you can tell me what the scale means, I would be eternally grateful for that. But I was having a little bit of play around, and I figured that if I slide it, it then reads 6 or 6.5, somewhere around there. And I went with the exposure settings from that, and I think I've overexposed this by around 2 stops. So I kind of had to rethink and adjust and take a photograph again. It's cost me a frame, I think, but it's all the trial and the error. So the film that I'm using in this camera is just Kodak Gold 200. It's a very inexpensive consumer grade film that is apparently quite forgiving for beginners with film. Obviously, I know how to expose a photograph. I'm just not sure if I know how to expose film. So we're going to have a play with this Kodak Gold, a very inexpensive film, and see how that goes. Now, this video is probably going to be a little bit bouncing around all over the place. My plan with this is to just come out every now and again and shoot a couple of frames off in different lighting conditions, different days, different times of the day, and see how we get along with things. So if it doesn't all quite mesh cohesively as in one day, that is the reason why. Alright, so there's one thing that I've noticed I'm doing already. Now, there is a limited number of photographs that I can take on this film, and, well, we're already up to 8. There's 24 shots in there, soon to become 9. Now, I think this is maybe a digital age thing. I'm used to photographing things on digital, and you can't have as many photographs as you would possibly like, don't you, doing that? But soon to become 9. So where are we at? We're reading 8.8. Sorry, 8.5 on the light meter there. 8.5 is giving us f11 or 1/25th of a second. So set the lens to f11, which it is, a 1/25th of a second. Wind the film on, and let's compose a photograph. A nice camper van there. I want to go a little bit wider. There's a puddle there, which you now can't see. Focus on the camper van. Nice wind farm in the background, some lovely light. Kadoosh. So Houston, I have a problem. You see, this light is just too gorgeous to not stop and take photographs with. I've just stopped the car at the side of the road. I've taken 2, maybe 3 photographs here. I'm kind of wondering if my plan is now about to change and I'm going to just rattle through this roll of film on the way home and get the thing developed. I'm really antsy and curious to see how this is going to turn out, but you can see there's just such a golden glow to everything, and I'm in an area where I wouldn't normally pull over the car, but it's so quiet tonight. There's nobody around and the light's just bouncing off things. And I'm also seeing subjects and photos that I would normally just drive straight past. It's weird how this film thing it's given me a different mentality, just to stop and take photographs, just slow down and just enjoy the process. Instead of limiting myself to the coast and the long exposures, I'm kind of just out shooting golden hour light, which is normally when I'll be going home as a long exposure photographer, whereas tonight it's really been a nice change. Let's see what happens on the way home. There's also a possibility of a sunset as well, and I've got tripods. Let's see what happens. So I've currently stopped the car in a bit of a passing place, so I don't think I'll have too much time to do this, but I've seen a farmhouse or some sort of barn building surrounded by these wind turbines, and I think I found a spot just on the side of the road where I can get a photograph from. But like I said, I'm in a bit of a passing place, so I'm going to have to really hurry and do this one, so I'm not going to be able to take you with you, but I'm kind of wondering if I can photograph myself, well, out the back window of the car. Now, I really have no idea if you're going to be able to hear me here, but, well, here goes nothing. So let's get the old light meter on the go. I think the light's kind of dying off now a little bit, so we're barely touching 8 on the light meter, so we are getting down to low shutter speed territory. So that's giving us f5.6, a 250th, f8, a 125th. I think we'll go with f8 and a 125th. Let's cock that shutter. Focus on the wind turbine there. Job's a good one. Hopefully, we're not about to get squished by a car. So I've just stopped off at the side of the road, and I think I've found the photograph that we're going to take to hopefully get some sunset colour here. There's just a lot of power lines just leading across a field, and it's kind of just where the sun's setting, so I'm going to camp around here as long as I possibly can, and hopefully we're going to get quite a nice photograph from this. I am going to have to put the camera on a tripod for this, I feel, but I do have a remote shutter with me and exposure calculators just in case we need to work that out. But it's looking like there's a bit of a promise of some sunset colour here, and it'd be a waste to throw that away. So let's have a look, see what happens, see how long it takes, and hopefully grab a nice photograph. Alright, so the camera's set up behind me, I've got it on the tripod, I've got the remote shutter plugged into the camera. Now it's just a case of waiting for the sun to set just a little bit more. We are pointing straight at the sun here, and this lens flares, and I really kind of want to avoid that, but I can see that through the viewfinder when that's happening. So we're just going to camp out a little bit of time, take our time, a little bit of patience, and see how this one turns out. Alright, so the sun's just setting a little bit now. There's a bank of cloud gone in front of the sun, so I'm going to try some settings here, but I'm not sure how we're going to do this one. I think it's going to be one of those that you're going to have to underexpose, and I'm not too sure how we'll get away with that in one shot on the film. So I'm likely going to cheat here a little bit, and I'm probably going to get some settings off of the camera that this has been recorded on, just to give me an idea of how this image is going to look. I don't want to screw it up, but I also really want to get on and take this photograph as quickly as possible before any of this colour starts to disappear. Let's have a look through the viewfinder and just see if that lens flare has disappeared. Not quite, there was a little bit still between the power lines, which is a little bit annoying. Let's have a look. It is fading ever so slightly, but it's still there, and I really just want to eradicate the lens flare. So hang on another few minutes until that flare disappears, and hopefully take this photograph. Alright, so let's double check the settings. F8, we're now at a 250th of a second. Let's cock back the shutter, let's arm it, double check the composition, double check for lens flare, another photo taken. I do like the shutter clack on these. The shutter release on this doesn't always pop straight back up, it can be a little bit infuriating, but there we go. So I think that's what, 16, 17 photographs I've taken tonight in one night. I think we'll leave that where it is for now, and I will pick up. So, very good morning, boys and girls. It's now the very next day. I've been to bed and had 4 hours sleep. And we've come back to the course. We're going to do the bit where the photos are more likely to go wrong. We're going to do some long exposure photography now. Yesterday, I feel it went okay. My two major concerns are, have I exposed the film correctly, and are the light seals on the camera actually in working order, which is something I didn't, well, really give a consideration to yesterday, but I've not shot film through this camera. So the light seals I'm a little bit unsure of. And like I say, we're going to do long exposures. This is where the exposure time really does count, and it is where things are likely, if they haven't already, to go wrong. So we're going to clamber up onto the rock wall. I've already got the tripod set up. I wanted to get that done before we start taking cameras up there. And we're going to take a long exposure before the tide really goes out. The tide is on its way out. We're getting a little bit of blue hour, orange light on the horizon, but for now, I just want to climb up there and see if we can take a long exposure. So let's get this first one in the bag. We'll sit down, we'll have a little bit more of a chat, and hopefully get some nice photographs this morning. Alright, so I'm straddling like a cowboy right now. I managed to get the lens focused. Now this camera uses something called a split screen and a micro prism focusing screen. It's a bit of a faff. I'll explain it to you in just a few seconds, but for now, I just want to take a light meter reading. So at 1.5 on the light meter, which at f11 is giving me a 1 second exposure. So I've already got the camera set to f8, I believe. Yes, so now f11. Let me just try and not fall over here and climb over so we can double check. f11, so if I now go across to 1 second on the exposure dial. Oh, I'm nervous about this right now. f11. Cock the shutter, 1 second is plugged in, using the remote shutter. One photograph taken. Now, when I was talking about the split screen and micro prism focusing screen in this camera, it's, imagine looking through a kaleidoscope without the colours is probably the best way I can describe this. There is a very dark focusing screen in there with a very bright centre spot, which is obviously where you do your spot metering if the light meter in the camera was working. But as you focus the screen around, you get this kind of jagged appearance to the edges of it. And once that's all disappeared and the two images that are created, you get a kind of ghosting effect. Once the ghosting effect's disappeared and the jaggedness is gone, you kind of know you're in focus. But in low light, I had a feeling it might be a bit of a pain to focus. It actually wasn't too bad, so I was quite relieved about that. Now, one thing I forgot to mention yesterday pertaining to the light meter in this, the light meter does actually work. It just doesn't have a battery in it. You see, this camera is from an era where mercury wasn't really a problem. It was one of those old mercury cell batteries. Now, you can buy modern-ish replacements, but as far as I can tell, the batteries don't actually last all that long, and cost to length of life, it didn't really seem worth it, which is why we are still rocking the 99p Leningrad 4. Let's find another photo, eh? So for this next one, I want to wait till the wave comes right close to the camera, and I want to get the white streaks as it's streaking back out. Now, I've had a go of the light meter already, and just to confirm, the light has changed that much. We're now, f16 is giving us a 1 second exposure. Now on a digital camera, f16 isn't somewhere I would normally go, but for the sake of this, I think we'll try it. So let's have a look. So I think the camera is f11. I have to move around here because I'm not the shortest, tallest of people. I'm quite short. f16. Let's cock the shutter now because there's a big wave coming in. So once all this starts to streak out, 1 second, and off we go. Hopefully, we've got a white streak as the surf's retreating with a bit of a long exposure look to soften the water. Here it is. Right, so we're currently around 15 minutes away from sunrise. So my plan now is just to chill out for 15 minutes, wait until the sun comes up and see if we get some dramatic backlighting in the clouds. Now, I do have a lens on the camera, my 28mm Clubman. It is capable of taking filters. I do have a filter ring that will fit this lens We're going to throw some filters on and we're going to see what we can do with that. Now I've got a little bit of confidence. I've been sort of careful with the exposure time so far, but we're getting towards the end of the roll of film. We've got, hopefully, some nice photographs anyway, so for the last maybe 2 photographs, a little bit of trial and error may not be a bad thing. So let's hang around for a few minutes, let's see what we can do. When the sun rises, and some of that cloud over there, might get a little bit of dramatic backlighting and look really quite cool. So, let's throw this filter kit on and have a look and see what we can do. So it takes a 52mm thread. We've got a 52mm step-up ring to 77mm. There we go. A very modern filter kit on a very old camera and lens. Now, let's just wait for the sun to come up, throw a filter on, and hopefully not cock up these exposures. I think I've got 4 left. I'm fairly sure it's 4 anyway. So when I got home last night and I had a chance to just digest this film photography a little bit, I kind of had the realisation as to how simple the whole process is. Once you think about it, so we have a lens on front of a box, a dark box, with some light sensitive material inside. There's no batteries here, it's just a very much pick up and go. It's all mechanical and I really do like that. And even the light meter here, there are no batteries in this. This is a selenium cell, it runs just off pure light. Just point it at something bright, whatever's inside of this reacts to the light and off it goes. There are no batteries, it's very much a pick up and go solution. And in terms of the photographs, it's all on me. The focus is completely manual, there are no focus assists in there. All of the settings for the camera, they're all controlled by me. There is no input from a computer chip to do this. Every dial, every button, everything that affects the exposure is down on me. The light meter, it's all down on me. I have to physically point this thing at what I want to meter off instead of using the cameras through the lens processing and getting an average meter reading. Everything is on me. You are genuinely creating a photograph on photosensitive film. And to me, that is just such a beautiful thing that I've never done before. And I'm really hoping this kind of sticks. Cost aside, it's not cheap as digital. I think long-term digital is probably cheaper. But I really have enjoyed the process so far. And I'm nervously anxious to see how the development goes on these. I think chances are I may get this roll of film sent in later on to be developed so I can see them. Do I get them on 6x4s? Do I get scans? I am not sure. That's the nervous thing. So I can see now that the sun has just started to rise above some clouds. You can see the bright orange behind the clouds. So it's time to get a filter on and see what else we can't do. All right, so we've just moved up on the beach a little bit, roughly to where the footpath is, where you come down to this beach. But there's just a little group of little white flowers just on top of this wall. And I really thought they'd make for a cute little foreground interest. So we're going to use them as the foreground on the bottom left-hand side rule of thirds-ish area. There are no guides in there, so we're kind of having to guess this one a little bit. And we're just using the rock wall out, going in the other direction, and the sun is just about to break a bank of clouds. So let's get a filter on. Let's get an exposure calculator because my maths at this time of the morning is shocking and hopefully quite a nice looking long exposure photograph. Wish me luck. All right, so we focused and composed. So let's take a light meter reading now. So that's giving me just over 4 on there. So we'll call it 4.5 to play it safe. Now, the closest exposure I can get to a long exposure would be 1/8 of a second and f11. So if I pop that down to f11, where are we? There we go. Now, I now need to remember 3 stops from that. So let's get the exposure calculator up. So f11, 1/8 of a second, somewhere over here. Let's have a look. 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. 1/8 of a second, ISO 200 is the film speed, and we've got an ND8 on. So let's have a look. ND8 gives us apparently 6 seconds. So let's cock the shutter because the light's changing ever so quickly right now. Let's get the stopwatch back up. Where is it? Come on. Reset. And what did we say? 6 seconds. Go. Oh no, we missed it. We cocked up. Now we're still set at a second. We've lost a frame because we wasn't in bold mode. Rookie mistake. Reset. 8 seconds. 6 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6. I have no idea if that worked. I know the first one didn't. So here it is, my first roll of 35mm film. I'm going to put that in the pocket so I don't lose it, and I'm going to go get that developed later on today. Now, I do hope I haven't cocked anything up here. I may have messed up removing the film. I was winding the wrong way for a bit and then I was winding the right way, and well, hopefully it survived. Now, my plan here is, you will have seen the photographs that I've taken. I haven't at this point, which is a bit sort of timeline bending. If I've got something, I've got something. If I haven't, I haven't. I really don't know, and that's sort of messing my brain up a little bit. I'm used to digital cameras. You can sort of see on the screen whether you've got the photographs that you wanted or not, and I'm really not used to that. But I would have shown you the photographs either way, so we're good, bad, indifferent. I would have shown you them. I feel I would be cheating myself and you if I didn't do that. I really want to show you the full process. So if I've got something, great. If I haven't, it's unfortunate, but I would have shown you the process either way. As I say, I feel I would be cheating if I showed you the good stuff and didn't show you the bad stuff, or vice versa. So if you have enjoyed today's video, please do give it a thumbs up. It really does help the video and it brings new viewers to see my content. If you liked it more than that, there's a subscribe button below me. You can press that and you'll see more content from myself every single week. So until the next time, I'm going to love you and leave you and say peace and goodbye.